a lot of decision making that we go through being influenced by the microbiome in our gut. And in terms of gut instinct, for me, how I experience that is more primal. It's more to do with survival. It's more to do with how do I come out of this in one piece. It's connected to that idea of like fear and what keeps you alive. So my gut, it has never steered me wrong. That's how I experience it. It's more of a red flag.
How often do you truly trust your gut instincts? How often do you follow your intuitions? I don't do it often, honestly. I'm more on the rational side of things. So I will look at data, statistics. I will look at information in order to drive decision, even when my gut feeling is telling me otherwise. And in this episode, we will delve into the art of trusting your instincts with our standout guest, Rachael Abah, a supreme spiritual guide and courage mentor to intuitive women leaders and entrepreneurs. Basically, she is in the business of supporting leaders who feel stuck to gain clarity and peace of mind. So join us for actionable steps and a roadmap to fearless decision making and discover how to make bold moves, cultivate intuitive choices, and find clarity in the midst of challenges. Hello.
Hello, Darine. Bonjour. Assalamu alaikum.
See, I love my community. We are multilingual here. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me. This is beautiful. I watch your show and you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And as we discussed before going live, I was really looking forward into today's conversation because spirituality and alignment and that inner strength, that inner instincts, I don't see it. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, even though I strongly believe this is the biggest piece that is missing when it comes to self-awareness and acknowledging who we are, being aware of our full potential and power. So you introduce yourself as a spirituality coach, but spirituality, I believe, means different things to different people. So what does it
Yes.
mean to you?
A lot of people, you might think spirituality and religion, it's not the same thing and it's not semantics. There is a difference. And so for me, spirituality is simply unseen science. So it's the realm of the unseen. And again, it goes across all faiths. It's really about faith and the acceptance that, or at least the acknowledgement that there's more beyond the physical body and there's more room for what you have yet to know. So it's that space of limitless possibility. So spirituality for me, I identify as being an intuitive. I identify as, having a relationship beyond what I call like transpersonal, mind, body, spirit. And yeah, so that's what spirituality means to me, what is yet to be revealed, known, and experienced.
Is that something that was part of you from a very young age, or is it
Yes.
something that you started to discover and gain interest in when becoming an adult?
Well, for me, both. It's that and. So as a child, it was just the awareness. You touched on that, Doreen. That awareness, that inner knowing, that part of ourselves, that was something that I had even from babyhood. I know scientists and science says that, in terms of like memory and, you're maybe 2 years old plus before you have any kind of memory of your infancy, your brain is still forming. That was not my experience. Just hands down, that was not my experience. From when I was an infant, I had, what the elders later referred to as like full spectrum sight. So as a baby, I was very aware of being in my baby body, not being able to speak, not being able to communicate with words, feeling extremely frustrated about it, looking around and just being an observer. And years later, when I got speech, then I was able to communicate all those pent up emotions and feelings and thoughts and opinions that I had with the adults in my life, and they were just floored and blown away. I had full awareness as an infant. And they were the ones who put the timelines on it for me, going, but you're only 3 months old. How could you know that you were only? And I would describe, I would repeat conversations. So that's something that I always had. And I was very fortunate that I had a mother who encouraged that in me, in the sense of listening to my inner voice and trusting my inner knowing, and, cultivating that experience of my dream world, right? Being another reality that is just as real as this one, and having those conversations with the child in a way that felt normal and felt like that was part of who I was, part of my whole arsenal, regardless of what I would experience in the world. So she had these two conversations with me of, not everyone is going to get this, not everyone is going to understand this, and, just heads up. However, within our home, you are whole and complete. And so I had both. And then cultivating that conversation, moving forward into adulthood, I started to put it together along with experience of, okay, when this happens, okay, there's a differentiation between like gut instinct, inner knowing, voice of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so there are all these different voices that I get to navigate, and I support clients in navigating as well.
So, the gut feelings, let's talk about those gut feelings. Where does it come from? And why is it so hard for most of us to understand what's happening and to trust it?
Yes. Well, there are many reasons. Each person has their own story. Gut feeling is one thing. Whether it be scientists, neuroscientists, new breakthroughs of gut, the idea of like a brain gut, and having, a lot of decision making that we go through being influenced by the microbiome in our gut. And we think it's our, so we have like a gut brain, we have like our head brain. I refer to, having also like a mind brain and like a collective consciousness brain. So there are all these different brains, our heart brain, all these different brains that we can draw from. And in terms of gut instinct, for me, how I experience that is more primal. It's more to do with survival. It's more to do with, how do I come out of this in one piece? And it's connected to that idea of like fear and what keeps you alive, right? Like, how do I keep this host alive? And so my gut, whether or not people listen to it, it has never steered me wrong. Truly, it has never steered me wrong. And the gut feeling I get is usually like a pull. It's like
Mm.
this, it's like a hold up, it's like a red flag. That's how I experience it. It's more of a red flag, my gut instinct of whether or not to say yes or no, whether or not to cross the light, even though it's green. So gut feelings are usually about, for me, survival and safety, and yes or no. It's very primal.
You were talking about it's about safety and survival more than fear and red flags, and it's very true because as a woman and a lot of women listening to this conversation, I'm sure will relate. Sometimes you will walk on the street or you will go to an event and you don't know why and for what reason. Everything seems normal, but there is something in your gut that tells you that this is not safe for you, or you shouldn't stay next to that person. And even sometimes, I tell myself, so there is this inner battle and this inner conversation where I'm like, this person, this man, has done nothing wrong to me. He looks normal, I don't know him, so why would I feel that way? But my gut feelings would tell me, this is not a place, or this is not an environment for you where you can be safe, so get out, right? And we have no explanation to that.
Yes, well, no logical, reasonable explanation in the optics of a situation. That's where the battle comes in, because it often, in my experience, doesn't make sense in the moment. It's very, instinctual.
Hmm.
And often I will invite you, and, I invite myself often to look at, okay, is this a reaction or a response based on like what has happened to me in the past? Or is it something that is happening and it's just data that I'm not able to, I don't have enough evidence yet, because it's about evidence. I don't yet have evidence to make this make sense to my brain. So there's a difference. So in terms of the stories we tell ourselves and biases and past experiences that might have been unpleasant, that might have compromised our safety, that's not the same as the gut instinct of for your highest benefit. So when you have no evidence of why this is, that's usually, what I refer to as the instinct, the gut instinct. However, when it's a story of, oh, maybe you had a horrible experience, I was assaulted, I was bitten by a dog, and now every dog sends alarm signals, that's not a gut instinct. That's more trauma trapped in the body. So you get to lean into your curiosity and see which is it, like meet it out. Like, okay, I'm experiencing this, so you acknowledge it. You don't just dismiss it. First invitation in is to acknowledge it, that you're feeling your feels. Okay, what's behind it? And then you get to unpack it. And this happens very quickly in the moment. You get to unpack it and then see, is it based on a fear? Okay, no. I don't know this guy. They've done nothing to me. Yet I have this feeling. Do I have any issues, about guys who look like this? Who does it remind me of? That, like, you do the whole inventory so that you go in clear. And then, your gut is still saying, go across the room and talk to that person or leave this room immediately. I usually do not hesitate. I am okay with looking completely off my rocker. Like, I am completely okay with people judging, or because that is of no consequence to me because I have confidence, right? I will bolt out of a room and, once I get the all clear, I will like saunter back in as if nothing happened. And I'm okay with that because that's what I've always cultivated and I lead from. I listen to that voice. Always go talk to that person, and I'll go over and be like, full disclosure, not sure why I'm here. However,
So you listen to your inner voice, and I love what you just shared with us. You have to learn to make the difference between trauma and that gut instincts, and thank you for all the tips you provided us, in order to be able to quickly identify what is this feeling is really about. But you said something at the beginning. You said, you have nurtured that inner voice, that inner strength. You have nurtured that aspect from within. And so, how can we do the same? Why is it so hard for us to acknowledge that our body, basically, or our energy, I don't know how we want to put it, is telling us something, and we got to trust it?
yes. And it's really comes down to a worthiness conversation of, and I loved how you started off the show about you being worth it and you being worthy, because you are. I am. We all are. And when you lean into your worthiness and this is innate, and you trust yourself. See, this is about building confidence, not external. That's what causes the static, the disturbance, and whether or not we listen and act on the wisdom of our body or the wisdom that comes with our gut instinct. So so in terms of a practice now, what I did and continue to do is ensuring that I am my word, that I do whatever choices I'm making, whatever decisions I'm making, whoever I surround myself with are for my highest value and my highest benefit. So that I begin to cultivate that first relationship, that primary relationship with myself, of trusting myself that I have my back. And once I can enroll myself in knowing that I have my back, that I can trust myself, that is at the root of the word confidence. To be able to confide in yourself and to be able to lean and rely on yourself because you have your back, then your confidence, the way you come out into the world, and the way that I get to listen unapologetically to that inner wisdom without thinking I get to explain myself externally. I do not rely, in terms of how I make my decisions, I do not rely on elements outside of myself. I have no influence over what happens around me. I do have influence over how I show up and who I'm being, and how I move through the world and how I relate to other people. That's what's within my power. That's what's within my control. So that confidence is innate. It's from within, and then I use that to put outside of myself. And then I, of course, look at data. I take in data. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly taking in data and using that as a reference point based on what I already feel innately.
In a world dominated by data and logic, why is it crucial for leaders to tap into their intuition? What practical steps can they take to enhance their intuitive abilities? As leader, and especially for us women leaders, we have a tendency, not all of us, but a lot of us have a tendency, to play the part, meaning that we want to portray an image that is not especially true to who we are, but that we believe is expected from us, right? From the
Yes.
company's, society's expectation. But then on the other side, we're like, hey, we go by the data, we go by the logic. Society is expecting me to behave that way. The organization, the team I'm leading is expecting me to behave that way. So this is the logic I will follow. So, how can we find the right balance as leaders between, hey, this is how I feel, this is what is expected? How can we tap into this intuition?
That's a fantastic question. And really, when you look at, and we use the term leader. So for me, a leader is not just someone who's at the head of something, who happens to be the boss of something. That's not a leader to me. That's just someone in charge of whatever. And so when I'm looking at leadership, I mean, leadership for me is inspired, like inspired leadership, where and this is the thing, most people, most leaders, most innovators, most pioneers and pathfinders, and people we hold up, a lot of their inspiration and their leadership and their decision making comes from listening to their intuition. A bright idea, creativity, all of this is in the realm of imagination. This is what, most leaders lean on, and people don't question it because they assume because they're a leader, they must be only relying on logic and reason. Not so. They get to be creative. So, how does one tap into that? And how does one trust themselves? It is a relationship that you nurture like any other. And as I said, your primary relationship, nurturing that. Data comes at us, whether it's like in the realm of reason and logic of what you can count and measure. This is what the world tends to, uphold and celebrate more, whatever you can count and measure. You also have data coming in on the other front that you cannot count and you cannot measure. You connect to and you just receive it like a download as a knowing. And then you think, oh, I have an idea. That's what that is. That's data. I have an idea. Oh, you know what we can do? And this is what leaders do. They're extremely creative and they know how to connect and bring out the best in their people. That is not something you can count and measure. That is in the unseen. That's spiritual. And so, trusting that, I mean, it's easy to trust a leader, someone physical and tangible in front of you. How do you trust yourself as a leader? How do you lean into that voice and know that, I can go on that? You already do. It's about acknowledging your process and breaking it down of, huh, why that decision? How come? Because sometimes you go on like nothing in front, like you don't know, and you're like, oh, I'm a risk taker. No, that was your intuition. You took a risk, and then you can say calculated risk based on the data, but it starts here. Then you go out to look for, evidence, and then you put all of that together, and then you go into committed action, and people follow, and people are inspired. So, there are definitely steps that I take clients through in cultivating that primary relationship that can then lead into committed action. The two are together. It's not either or. It's not like you're either intuitive or you only go on reason and logic. No, it's a marriage, it's a harmony.
Love that. Fear can be a significant barrier to growth. How do you encourage leaders to confront and overcome their fears, which is kind of in line with just what you just explained to us?
Yes. Fear is inevitable in the human body, in this human physical experience. And in my work and in my experience, it's not to overcome fear. It's not to be fearless, because fear is always in your rear view. Fear is always in your rearview mirror. So it's all about, how do I now look at the data, listen to my inner voice, and transform fear into fuel? Like, how do I use that fear? At the heart of every fear, it's like, I'm going to die, right? I can't go up and give a speech because I'll go up there, I'll screw it up, and I'm literally just going to die on the spot. Like, like every fear inevitably leads to mortal demise. So fear for me has now become a huge ally. I use fear as a tool. I get behind, okay, what is it really that what's my worst case scenario? And then I reverse engineer from there and use it as a catalyst for my level up, my catalyst for learning whatever it is. Um, I use it to actually leverage myself rather than let it press me down and play small.
I hope you are taking notes, people, because this is very, very powerful. So now tell us more about the work that you do, and why did you decide to focus on helping women leaders and entrepreneurs?
In the world where anything that cannot be counted and measured, and a lot of things that, women, in terms of our strengths, our intuitivity, these things are kind of poo-pooed in, Western culture in specific. And I wanted to, from my experience as well, know that you are seen. Know that this is just as legitimate and valuable a tool in business as it is in your day to day life. And I wanted to normalize the idea of listening to your inner voice and your intuition, and then putting that, like applying it in ways that you can gain measurable results, whether it be in your teams, whether it be in the deals that you make, whether it be in the opportunities you create for yourself and others, for your companies. These are all things that intuition is not simply to be left in the realm of, the spiritual, the unseen. I wanted to really bring that superpower, because it is, bring the superpower of your intuition and your deep knowing into business, to be able to give that edge in a way without that stigma of, this is how you can leverage your creativity, your insight, in a way that you actually gain measurable success. So supporting women, no brainer. We are just absolutely, like, you raise one woman and you raise an entire nation. So for me, that was just what will have maximum impact with ease. And that's how I find my work, with ease, working with other ambitious women of faith who have a vision for creating, massive social impact in a positive way for the world.
And talking about impact, what is the legacy you would like to leave behind? What would you like to be remembered for?
Oh my goodness. Remembered for. Well, first of all, I would love to know that whatever lives that I've touched, I really left them with a sense of being seen and being elevated, and that I was able to be part of their story of unleashing their full potential. and realizing themselves as a whole and complete being. That would be just on an individual level. And then in terms of legacy and global, I would love to be able to, as I said, bring spirituality out of the realm of what people might think religion and normalize that in our day to day so that everyone becomes a leader in their own right, and together we just transform the world. So in terms of normalizing leadership, especially for women, because that's something I found as well, where you say, are you a leader? They're like, oh no, not really. No, I just do my little thing over here. No, leadership in the sense of we're all leaders and we get to step into it and we get to lead our families, whether it's our families, our communities, in whatever space, lead yourself. And then you go out into the world and be that beacon of light, of transformation, of hope, and just joy in the world. That's what I would want my legacy to be.
That's beautiful, and this is a wonderful way for us to wrap up this episode. And we hope you enjoyed the conversation that you gain value from it. Rachael, thank you so much for your time today. I have learned so much, and I'm committing to myself to start implementing the steps that you shared with us, especially when it comes to identifying that inner voice and acknowledging it, and finding power from within. We need it, all of us need it, women much more so. Ladies, please, listen, really listen to this episode as many times as you need, because this is powerful and we have that power from within, and we are doing this to ourselves because we are not using it most of the time, not because we don't want to, but because we don't know how, right? Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.